Hello, dear viewer. I'm Brian, aka Jalinon, on the Lunar Nebula reading channel, and welcome to this video sharing 3 of my favorite fantasy books on the Kindle Store. Have you wondered what the Kindle Store offers? Need a new fantasy book to read? To be filled with wonderful characters exploring unknown vistas? Then this video recommendation is for you, fellow bibliophile. So, let me just start out with saying, I'm a Christian. I do like to read books that are not Christian. All of these books, I would not say are Christian. They are for entertainment, mostly. I do believe they have some good themes to them, but most of them I would recommend for high school ages and up due to subject matter, profanity, some of the content that is in there, and so on and so forth. So, just with that little disclaimer out of the way, then let's start with Orconomics, a satire from the Dark Prophet Saga. It's book 1 out of 2 right now, and I'm really hoping that Zachary Pike, the author, will continue to produce some more of these books because I love it. So Orconomics is basically about a dwarf who is a little bit on the outs right now. He's been hit pretty hard by life. He is recruited, shall we say, by some shady characters into getting a team to follow up on some things called elven marbles. Now, these marbles are basically some statues that have significance to not just the elves, but also the NPCs, or the non-combat papered monsters, or darkkin, that are no longer so monstrous, shall we say. So the book deals with such things as, I would say, greed being a huge issue, and racism overall, because the basic idea is that a lot of stuff goes down. Turns out adventuring is a major part of the economy, and about 70% of the economy runs around adventuring, and the idea of adventurers going and finding treasure hoards that monsters have been collecting over the years. And we get some little glimpses into the economic issues facing the Kingdom of Vanderun as people are starting to realize these hoards are drying up as there are so many adventurers and not enough adventures, shall we say. So, I really like this story as the author feels like a kind of Terry Pratchett style with a very good emphasis on the characters and their development through the story as well. Just note, as I said before, the story does deal with greed, racism. Some of the characters deal with substance abuse problems, basically. Potions in this story, I don't want to ruin it, but potions are treated as a very interesting thing. Like, it's called salve as the slang. So it's pretty interesting, but once again, I would say probably for high school ages and up, just based on the subject matter that some of the characters go through, grow from. And I would highly recommend this series to anybody that likes fantasy. So once again, that is Orconomics, a satire, the Dark Prophet Saga, Book 1, by Zachary Pike. The next book on my list is a very different style of story. It is not really there for comedic effect. It is more of a dark anti-hero story, I would say. It is, once again, in a solidly fantasy setting, and it is called Free the Darkness, King's Dark Tidings, Book 1, by Kel Cade. So this one follows the I would say, adventures, yes, of Rezkin. Rezkin is trained basically from birth inside a long-forgotten fortress, which is now only filled with basically the fantasy equivalent of the Navy SEALs and Royal Guardsmen, and his 2 masters. Now, at the end of his time there, when he's done with his training, his masters tell him to kill everyone, and the masters engage in a duel. Weird stuff, right? But, yeah. basically, the final command his masters give him after pretty much everybody's dead, because he is being trained to be an assassin, of course, they leave him with a worrying new mission that he has no basis for. Love and protect your friends. But first, he has to figure out, what is a friend? So the story gets even better from there. I highly enjoy it. It is, once again, a fantasy action story. There's some hints of romance in there. It is a little bit dark because, of course, he's been trained to be an assassin, and he sees the world from a very stark perspective. And it's fun to see him kind of learn to trust people a little bit, maybe not. That's often kind of the tension in the story is, okay, what's he going to do next? And how is he going to see this as protecting his friends, basically? I would highly recommend the story to high school ages and up. There's some adult content in there, profanity, once again, lots of fighting and action scenes, and dealing with the underworld of the fantasy. But yeah, I really like what Kelkade did with the story. I think there are 4 books out right now in that series, and Kelkade has started a new series that is also pretty interesting. The idea in that series is that prophesied hero has basically failed the prophecy, right? Also, very good. But anyway, back to King's Dark Tidings Book 1, Free the Darkness. Yeah, it's as Rezkin going on adventures and learning about friendship a little bit and doing cool stuff. So if you like seeing kind of the dark fantasy assassin type guy, but you're tired of them always doing bad stuff for bad stuff's sake, then yeah, I really like Free the Darkness, King's Dark Tidings, Book 1. The third of my top 3 favorite fantasy books on Kindle is actually the one nearest and dearest to my heart. It's called Downfall and Rise, Challenger's Call, Book 1, by Nathan Thompson. So this book is about Wes Malcolm. Wes Malcolm is basically on the receiving end of like all the negative karma of the universe, pretty much, at the beginning of this book. So, just to warn you, there are some hard subject things going on in Downfall and Rise. Wes Malcolm's dad wasn't the man that Wes thought he was. That's a huge emotional trauma, right? Well, on top of that, he's dealing with significant head trauma from a football injury. He's basically walking around, when he can walk, with a cane, and he has huge concussion symptoms. He's having trouble remembering things. He's having trouble with bullies in school. You know, he's basically like the guy that everybody is picking on, which is terrible. But, you know, makes him a great protagonist to go through and see the world from his eyes, his perspective, and to see what it is to really persevere through a lot of hard things. So I really like it because I was reading this book during a hard time in my own life. I've dealt with chronic pain stuff, and I can understand a little bit of what Malcolm goes through. Thankfully, not really any of the family issues, but yeah. I would recommend this book for ages high school and up because, once again, harsher subject matter. There's stuff like torture that happens as well, and kids are being threatened in some parts of the book and stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, the bad guys are bad. Bad guys are bad. But the good guys are good. You know, there is profanity in there. What else? You know, adult stuff, etc., etc. But one of the things I really like about the book is how it talks about universal laws. And one of those universal laws is that failure is non-permanent, right? And that's just a huge thing because the book starts out, you know, from kind of a normal perspective of, oh, I'm a teenager and some year in the future probably, and dealing with all these problems. And then gets into a fantasy world where it becomes a bit more of a lit RPG. Maybe a little bit of sci-fi thrown in there, a little bit of fantasy. And then, yeah, stuff happens. Stuff happens. I don't want to ruin it because it's great, in my opinion. But yeah, if you don't like lit RPG stuff, if you don't like main character that the world is basically kicking while he's down, rise up and grow stronger from all these experiences, then this book probably isn't for you. I would highly recommend it to anybody going through a hard time just because it really kind of gives you a new perspective on the pain that you're dealing with and going through. And I think that's a valuable lesson. But, you know, that's just what I think. Anyway, on to the honorable mention of the video. Let me let you know about Child of the Daystar, The Wings of War, Book 1 by Bryce O'Connor. So this book is an honorable mention. I do really like it, but it's really dark. It's really dark. So Bryce, I follow him on Facebook, and he loves kind of like the dark hero style of story, where kind of like the previous story, the main character goes through a lot of stuff and may not come through it all being the nicest guy, shall we say. So yeah, Bryce O'Connor continues that. And I would say this is solidly in adult territory because it's more graphic and violent. And further on in the series as well, it gets even darker. So yeah. Can't recommend it for everybody, but I do think Bryce O'Connor does a great job as an author, getting you kind of into the character's mind and going through the world and learning about it, and then going through character development as well. Honestly, it feels a little bit like Drist the Dragon. So Drist Do'Urden, very famous fantasy character by R.A. Salvatore, where, you know, you're kind of in his mind. He's going through some philosophical stuff in this fantasy world, and then he's also dealing with some stuff, right? And so I would say, yeah, the main character, Raz Isiol Aro, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, Bryce, is a guy who was once enslaved as a dragon, you know, dragon man. Basically, meets a nice family, they get along really well, learn some stuff from them, they all get killed. And he is very, very angry about that, for a good reason. And unlike a lot of people, he decides to go on a killing spree himself of the perpetrators. So yeah, that's kind of what Child of the Daystar is about. It's Raz Isiol Aro, his journey, and basically taking revenge in this first book. And then after this book, more adventures happen, more bad things happen as well. And then Raz Isiol Aro is basically the hand of vengeance in all of them. And it's pretty good, but very violent. There are definitely adult situations described in further books of the series. I don't remember too many in the first book, other than I think they do talk about prostitution and stuff, because the bad guys are bad. Go figure, right? So, yeah, those are some of my favorite fantasy books on the Kindle Store. Hopefully this will help you find a new read that could help entertain you during all this crazy 2020 stuff. And yeah, if, you know, you're not into that kind of stuff, then hopefully you will have a future book that I can recommend to you on this channel. Feel free to like this video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you do want to hear about more books on the Kindle Store in the future, or just other books, or just reading in general. That's what this channel's about. Share this video with somebody you think would enjoy it. And have a great day, dear viewer.